evening. Welcome to the school board meeting of Independent School District 271 of Bloomington Public Schools. Today is Monday, October 12th, 2020. It is 7 p.m. The school board meeting tonight is being conducted remotely via Hangouts Meet. It is being live streamed by BEC TV and will be replayed per their usual BEC TV replay schedule. And before I continue, I'd like to make a comment about our meetings, as I know that members of the public and members of our school community have been asking when we'll be returning to our meetings in person in the boardroom. I just wanted to clarify what is going on with that. So back in March, when the executive order from our governor was released and school went into distance learning, we did the same. The school board went into remote meetings mode. And then as the school year started and we started on distance learning, we decided to continue to meet. We decided to continue to meet in this format and then to revisit once any changes were happening in the schools. Once the board voted on started hybrid for our elementary schools, we revisited. We have revisited with the vice chair and the superintendent, and at this point we are unable to return to the boardroom because first, according to the mandate, there has to be a place that is that meets the requirements for safety, and our boardroom is not big enough for the amount of people that we usually have in our meetings, which includes administration and board members and other members of our school community, as well as members of the public. And so for that reason, we're not able to use the room right now for in-person meetings for all. However, we are looking into the option of having hybrid meetings as well. But however, we have a technology issue right now that has to do with the sound system in our boardroom. So what we're doing right now is investigating what needs to be done, what needs to happen for us in order to be able to have to hold those hybrid meetings in the boardroom. So for now, we're gonna continue until we have more information. We'll continue to meet in this format and distance in remote meetings until we can find an answer to that, because we also want to make sure that all of our public is able to watch our meetings and to have access to those. So thank you for understanding. Okay, so the next thing, recognizing that today is Indigenous Peoples Day, I am going to read a brief statement. American Indian Land Acknowledgement. Please consider that while most of us in this meeting or viewing this meeting are not in the same room, all of us, wherever we are in Bloomington or the metro area, on the traditional, ancestral, and contemporary land of Indigenous people. Bloomington Public Schools rest on Dakota land ceded in the treaties of 1837 and 1851. Okay. So upon conclusion of tonight's meeting, we're gonna need a motion to establish a closed session. And the meeting will be closed as permitted by section 13D.03 to discuss the district's labor negotiation strategy related to the district negotiations with all bargaining groups.
So moved.
We'll make it at the end of the meeting.
Okay. Thought you
We'll make the
wanted it
motion
now.
at the end. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So next. A lot of papers. Okay, we're going into roll call. So all board members who are present, please indicate that you're here. Director Bibi.
Here.
Director Bennett.
Here.
Director Olson.
Here.
Director Sorm.
Here.
Director Starks.
Here.
Director Steigath.
Here.
And Korman is here. So all board members are present tonight. Next, we'll go into approval of the agenda. Superintendent Fujitaki?
Thank you, Chair Korman. Administration requests a board motion to remove from Part A of the consent agenda the following topic: Approved Booster Club 2021. The reason for this request is because administration needs time to ensure that our approval action is in compliance with the board policy 510 activities. So may I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Good. It was moved by Director Starks and second by Director Beebe. Any comments in relation to this? Any questions? Okay, hearing none, then let's vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Director Beebe,
Aye.
Director Bennett,
Aye.
Director Olson,
Aye.
Director Sorum,
Aye.
Director Starks,
Aye.
Director Steiger.
Aye.
And Korman, aye. So this motion has been approved. And so we are, with this, we have approved the agenda without this item, correct? Correct. Okay. Just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing here. Okay. So after approval of the agenda, we have recognition of the public. So on the school board page of the district's website, there is a link for Bloomington residents, district staff, students, and parents to submit a comment to the school board. Submitted comments may be read during the recognition of the public portion of the meeting, providing that the comment is not related to topics on tonight's agenda and guidelines outlined on the comment form have been followed. We will allow up to 15 minutes to listen to public comment that has been submitted prior to the meeting. If the board receives comments that exceed the 15 minutes, those comments not read during the meeting will be shared with the school board. Should there be no comments or only a few that take less than the allotted 15 minutes, the meeting will proceed. A reminder that the school board listens to public comment and does not respond during the meeting. Typically, matters are referred to administration. Mr. Kaufman, do we have any public comment for tonight?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Fujitaki, and our viewing audience, we have two submissions this evening. The first comes to us from Tammy Kellen with an address of 4551 West 102nd Street in Bloomington. And Ms. Kellen writes, why is the school board still meeting remotely while they are voting for early childhood and elementary students to return in person? The second submission this evening comes from William Schwant with an address of 931 Cherokee Avenue, West St. Paul. Mr. Schwant has written, during the school board meeting on September 14th, Mary Burrows gave an update on negotiations with the Bloomington Federation of Paraprofessionals. I would like to add to that statement for better understanding of the school board and any community members who are interested. While Mary did say that the district provided a last, best, and final offer during the mediation session on June 22nd, she failed to include that multiple requests from the Bloomington Federation of Paraprofessionals to return to the table have gone without a response of potential dates that the district would be willing to do so. She also did not include the fact that two demands to bargain filed by the BFP, one with the Bloomington Federation of Teachers and one by the Bloomington Federation of Paraprofessionals individually, have largely gone unanswered. It is the general feeling of the BFP that the district has simply stuck their head in the sand when it comes to negotiations with the Bloomington Federation of Paraprofessionals. At this time, we are respectfully asking the district to either impose their last, best, and final offer, or come back to the table so that we can finalize a tentative agreement that we can take a contract to our members for a vote. The paraprofessionals in Bloomington routinely go above and beyond the call of duty, and that has been even more evident since the current pandemic has created a normal. I find it rather disrespectful that the district continues to not negotiate in good faith, nor are they willing to move forward so that a contract can be completed. Finally, I would like to leave you with a comment that was eloquently voiced by Minneapolis School Board Chair Kim Ellison, quote, "A budget is a moral document. You spend money on what you value," unquote. Right now, there are a huge number of paraprofessionals in Bloomington who do not feel valued. Madam Chair, those are the only two submissions for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Next, we'll move it into approval of the Part A of the agenda, the consent actions. Those items are board business, contract agreements, and finance. Will somebody like to move approval of Part A?
So moved.
Second, Staff.
Moved by Director Bibi and second by Director Steigav. All those in favor of approving this Part A of the agenda, please say aye. Director Bibi,
Aye.
Director Bennett,
Aye.
Director Olson,
Aye.
Director Sorum,
Aye.
Director Starks,
Aye.
Director Steigav,
Aye.
and Korman. Aye. So that part of the agenda has been approved. And then we moved into Part B of our agenda. And before we moved into that Part B of the agenda, I just want to say one more time that we are very, very thankful. Our school board is very thankful to all the people, teachers and staff members who have worked so hard during this time. We recognize that the work that, in general, the work of education, it's not easy, but especially during this time of the pandemic, we recognize that you have all worked very, very hard and with a lot of effort ever since March. And especially during those moments, we recognize too how difficult it can be, the uncertainty of the situation. And just want to make sure that you know that we truly, truly appreciate that the work you're all doing, all staff members, every single one of you in administration, staff members in general, paraprofessionals, all the different people that are serving right now in our schools, our kids, people serving food, for example. I mean, Office of Educational Equity. I need to have a whole list to really mention everyone. So we're truly, truly grateful to you for the work that you've done, and to our principals, and especially to our teachers who are now right there in the fields with our kids, experiencing what it is like to be teaching during a pandemic. Thank you very much, and from the bottom of my teacher heart, thank you for all you're doing. And there's no more words to really say how much we value and appreciate the work that you do. So thank you. And as we talk about our wonderful teachers in this Part B, we have our first item. We have the second grade math BTAs featuring David Doraba. And for that, I'd like to call Dr. Dave Heistad and Dr. Julio Cesar.
Good evening, Chair Korman, Board Directors, and Superintendent Fujitaki. Tonight we are highlighting the great instruction of Bloomington second grade teacher David Doraba, who produced the largest growth in math in the district over a 3-year consecutive years. David is with us virtually, and his instruction is captured in videotape by Martha Lowe, who's our fantastic videographer working with us over the course of many years now. As many of you know, the Beat the Odds analysis controls for student characteristics such as poverty, English language learner status, special ed status, and prior math knowledge before entering second grade. In this way, we are able to estimate the value added of classroom instruction. So first we will show the short video. Then Mark Lewis, who's the Research and Planning Director at Normandale Community College and happens to be an expert in early math learning, will say a few words about David's instruction. Olson Elementary Principal Paul Meyer will say a few words, and then you will hear directly from David. and be able to ask questions of him. Deb, could you please start the video?
Pops, explain that some more. How did you get 71 ones? Okay, and so did everyone understand that? Did anyone have a different way? Fantastic, let's give Hasse a hand, nice job.
Everyone loves a good story where the hero wins despite high odds against it. Well, these beat the odds studies have been the most exciting work that I've done in my 30 plus years of service. This year we took a look at second grade math. In the past 4 years, the state of Minnesota has shown a decline in math proficiency. 4 percentage points is a lot of decrease given the fact that we have over 400,000 students taking the test.
While many students don't necessarily see themselves as mathematicians, it's an area that a lot of them don't identify as a strength.
Too often we talk to an adult and they say, I'm not a math person. And too often we see kids checking out.
I think the best thing that we as teachers can do to help students in math is try to get students to have a growth mindset towards math. Really making sure that they understand that I can do this, I can do math, I can try, and if I don't exactly get the right answer, I tried.
It's clear that David is creating math people at an early age. In his classroom, every student was engaged. Every student clearly felt like they could do math.
He calls on us and let us write an equation on the whiteboard.
I would say that the beat the odds analysis is actually quite sophisticated statistical procedure. Our studies adjust student scores for risk factors, thereby making a fair comparison among teachers.
We used 3 years of data to identify student progress across the district. Students in Dave's class made remarkable progress. They learned almost a year and a half worth of material in a single year.
When Dave said that, I'm like, that's fantastic. And I always knew that they did score well, but yeah, so that was nice. It was a nice honor.
Subtraction is where you take away numbers, kind of getting rid of them.
Two-digit subtraction with regrouping is a major skill in second grade. And that is a skill that's going to be lifelong if you have a checkbook.
It's not really about the borrowing, it's the understanding of the place value that's so critical for students to have. So we don't want to emphasize the procedure or the algorithm. It's really important that students understand why it works.
Does he have more sandwiches than Mrs. Fife or less sandwiches? Talk about that with your partner, please. Tell me how you know that.
There was lots of very rich student talk happening in this classroom. The use of purposeful questions to really deepen and strengthen students' discussions around the math that they were learning.
David spent a lot of time helping students go from the language of a word problem to the language of math. Without language and without a clear understanding of that language, they never get there.
Okay, then you know where to go.
We're doing the writing station, so we have to use first, next, then, and after that, and finally, and we have to do the equation and we have to write it down.
Small group instruction is a really critical part of effective mathematics instruction, and so after the teacher has an opportunity, David in this case has an opportunity to model the kinds of thinking and model the procedures that he's teaching. That small group instruction gives him the opportunity to check for misconceptions, for students to get even more guided practice in what they're learning before they're expected to demonstrate it on their own.
So, they might not be able to understand it in one station, but maybe they got it in another station, or maybe it became more clear when we used more manipulatives in a different station, and then pretty soon we've got all the stations, and now all of a sudden I'm starting to get it. And that makes it fun for them then.
So, Korman just finished his verse, and then he finished all the patterns, and when you flip it over, it turns into a thing, which is wrong, because it's all messed up. You gotta redo all of them.
David is relentless for helping all children. One kid, if they don't get it, if they don't understand the concept, he doesn't just drop it and move on. He makes sure that that child gets it as well.
The type of algebraic reasoning that David is starting to build in his class is going to be one of the strongest predictors of how those students are going to do in life. It's going to determine how they do in college, the types of careers that are open to them, and it starts at a really early age.
Someday I'll be as smart as my mom.
All good stories have happy endings, and Beat the Odds helps us to light the path for positive outcomes for our students. Next, we'll ask Dr. Mark Lewis from Normandale Community College to give a few comments about the pedagogy you just witnessed.
Hi, I'm Mark Lewis. I'm an educational psychologist, and I did my postdoctoral work in educational neuroscience, focusing on how the brain helps students learn early math. I'm also the director of research and planning at Normandale, where I see on a daily basis how the challenges that children have in K-12 math education can translate into barriers to their college and career aspirations. When Les and Dave invited me to participate in the Beats the Odds study, I was incredibly excited. But I got even more excited when I went to David's classroom. Because one of the things I think you saw in the video, but one thing that's really immediately clear when you step into his classroom is just how engaged all of his students are. Students really believe they can do math, and they're actively engaged in mathematical reasoning. These aren't the types of kids, or at least we hope they aren't, that are going to grow up and say, I'm not a math person. Too often, that's something that we hear from adults. You would never hear someone say, I'm not a reading person. That's just not an acceptable mentality, but it's something as adults we're willing to say about ourselves in the space of math. And too often that happens in second, third, and fourth grade. So what's really exciting about David's class when you look at it is how much he focuses on the language of mathematics, helping students understand what's going on in a word problem, really developing a conceptual understanding of mathematics. He asked children to explain their thinking, to talk about multiple approaches to a problem, and he pairs this with a really effective mix of visual representations, the purely symbolic math that we often struggle with as we get older. And for some of the children who are struggling, he involves manipulatives to help them ground their understanding and things that they can actually touch and handle and translate into kind of a growing conceptual understanding of mathematics. One of the things that I heard from Dave when I spoke to him, or David, sorry, is how he really does a great job of keeping track of where his students are. He really does a great job in real time and integrating previous assessments, how children have done in previous class sessions, how they're doing in the class at that time. So he can really personalize their learning experience, meeting their needs, meeting them where they're at. And the reason why he's so good at doing this is because he doesn't just follow best practices in mathematics education, but he has great classroom management skills. You didn't really get to see all of this in the video, but you got to see some of it. But he transitions seamlessly from whole group instruction to quick individual work to small group work where children are able to rotate through these really effectively set up stations. And that's where it really allows him to sort of maximize the personalization of learning that's going on. He's kind of differentiated the instruction that his students are receiving so that all of the students in his class are kind of engaged in just the right type of learning at the moment. So as we kind of collectively try to build pathways from early childhood to college and career readiness, we really need students who are going to be embracing math from an early age. And to do this, we need more teachers like David, but we also need to start taking the practices that he and other teachers like him are doing, as well as new practices that we discover along the way to all of our students.
Thank you so much, Mark. Next, we'd like to hear from Paul. Paul Meyer is the principal at Olson Elementary, and has a few comments for us.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Paul Meyer. I'm the principal at Olson Elementary, and I'd just like to share a few things about Mr. Durava. So I've known him for a while, and I'm continue to be impressed with his pedagogy as well as his care for individuals. David, everything he does is purposeful. He doesn't do something just to do it. It's something to accomplish something that he needs to accomplish a goal. That's just how he is wired. And David is a fidelity king. When he sticks to something, he sticks to it. And the funny thing is, we sometimes battle back and forth where he's like, I can't take a recess at that time because I need more instructional time. And he fights for that fidelity because he knows what good pedagogy is. And I respect that. And it's not always easy, but I respect it very much so. And lastly, David is student-centered, student-focused, and he's really a champion for all. And like I said in the video, he is relentless for all children. He does not let them fall behind, and he makes sure that everyone is accounted for and that they are getting what he feels, what his best effort is. And I commend him for that. And we are so fortunate to have him as an OLE staff member. So thank you, David, for all that you do.
Thanks, Paul. And now finally we hear from David. I've just asked him to share a few thoughts about what makes his instruction so powerful. David?
Thank you, everyone. I'm seeing my old classroom and seeing all the kids together. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to have that again at some time. It's kind of hard to talk about yourself, but one thing that the most passion that I have for teaching is when all the children are there, getting to know each one individually, personally, academically, everything, and just getting to know the whole child. And then as I get to know the whole child, figuring out what can I do to make learning fun for you? Do I need to turn them into games? Do I need to use manipulatives? Do I need to challenge you more? Do I need to make sure that you're more on the abstract? You know, all of these different things. So getting to know the students and getting to know each child individually, and then adapting what I'm doing in the classroom to make sure that each child's needs are met. And that can be in all different kinds of ways. So it's just been, I don't know, an amazing experience, and seeing all this is just extremely humbling. That's all that's all I can say right now.
Thanks so much, David. I just, with these studies, I just follow the data, and I don't know where it's going to lead me. And I'm excited when I find fabulous teachers at the end of this stream of data that shows the person behind the great work. Now I'd like to open it up to the board members for comments and questions. Jim Sorum, I know you have a question. You always do have great questions.
Thank you, David and David. David Darab, are you looking forward to the 19th when we re-engage the students?
Absolutely. And so with a little bit of fear too, and you know, all the unknowns that come with it, but absolutely, I'm very much looking forward to it.
Thank you. We are too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry for a moment, my computer would not allow me to unmute myself. Director Bennett.
First of all, congratulations, David, on being a Beats the Odds teacher, and thank you so much for all the work you do to unlock the mystery of math for all of our learners. Watching that video, I know that's pre-COVID, but just watching it kind of makes me nervous how close all the kids are together and no one's practicing social distancing, and you're doing all these great strategies that have worked. But I'm wondering, in the time of COVID and through distance learning and going back to hybrid next week, how are you able to take those great strategies and still implement them for your students? Because, you know, I believe that great teachers can teach no matter what the medium is, no matter what the curriculum is, their greatness shines through. So I'm wondering if you have any tips or strategies that we can kind of, emphasize for the rest of our community of what's working well, if you don't mind sharing a little bit.
And that's a hard one for me because we're still kind of working on how that's all going to go together with small groups, how we can even socially distance into small groups and everything. So my amazing team and I have been working together on how we're going to keep everything going, how we're going to use manipulatives. We're definitely following the plan of, using them, washing them, storing them, that kind of stuff. But we're still planning on hopefully being able to do those things. And the small group part is where we're kind of stuck right now of like how we're going to do that at 6 feet away. But we're hoping that we can still get them very active, at least at their desks right now or somehow, and getting the strategies going. But it's still kind of a work in progress right now with that. And hopefully when they actually come, I'd be able to answer that a little bit better.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Director Bibi.
It's good to see you, David. I remember being in your school and watching you, and you're just full of a lot of life. That's very, very refreshing. And David, I know we have had a change in curriculum in the last 4 years, and I was wondering if the new curriculum lends itself better to your style of teaching, and if that has helped you at all.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love this curriculum, and I liked everyday math too, but I really feel like this is a really neat blend of kind of traditional way of teaching math, and then you can take it and go forward and manipulating it however you wish. So I found like this one was a little bit easier for us to play with, manipulate, add to, take away from, like those kinds of things, and really make it more individual rather than where I thought everyday math was more of the spiraling and that caused some more challenges within it. But I felt like for this one, it was easier to make small groups based on ability, but also based on different types of activities and games and different things where the other one I didn't feel like did that as well. So I'm enjoying this curriculum a lot.
Well, thanks for all the creativity that you bring, and we appreciate your work with these students.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other comments or questions? No? Well, Mr. Doraba, thank you very much for beating the odds. We can see the passion in you as an educator. I love seeing, how you talk about developing those relationships with your kids and having fun. So thank you for planting the seeds of strong mathematics skills in the future of those kids. It makes me want to go back to 2nd grade and be in your class.
Oh, please come in anytime.
Well, you know what? My baby's in for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this honor. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Lewis, for being here with us tonight too. So applause for Mr. Doraba.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one more comment, Chair Korman. We took quite a bit of videotape over the course of a full hour. And so we have an instructional video that can be used by our curriculum department and other folks to get into more depth with David's instruction. And David does a great job of talking about his philosophy of making sure that students have a growth mindset. And so that videotape will be available on the board's YouTube site. And any of the board members or administrators who would like to see a more in-depth picture of David's instruction, that'll be available. So I want to thank the board again for being interested in getting inside the classrooms of fabulous teachers, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Heisted, and thank you, Principal Meyer, for being here with us tonight. Well, next in our agenda, we have, let's see. Oh, the reserve teacher rate increase. There is, oh my gosh, a resolution. Would someone like to read it, please? If I see a hand. Director Olson?
I'm not sure if I can read it because I will have to recuse myself from voting on the resolution, but since no one was raising their hand, I'm happy to read it.
I don't know. Mr. Holman, I don't think you can, you should. I think somebody else needs to volunteer. Any other board member? Do I need to volunteer someone? Okay. Director Bennett, maybe?
Sure, I was gonna do all the policy ones, but I guess I'll just do them all for the night. So, be resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 authorizes the following tiered wage rates for reserve teachers based on the number of days worked in the district. Days 1 through 19, $140 per day. Days 20 through 29, $150 per day. Days 30 through 39, $160 per day. Days 40 through 49, $170 per day. And days 50 plus $180 per day. Retirees will receive an extra $10 for their work as done previously. The $15 incentive will continue for reserve teachers who work on Fridays. This will go into effect 11/1/2020.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Steigoff.
Okay, thank you. And then I'd like to call Mr. Mary Burris, Director of Human Resources.
Okay, Madam Chair, Superintendent Fujitaki, and members of the school board, I bring forward a reserve teacher rate of pay almost annually as far as increases. This year, many things went into the decision, including trying to incentivize teachers to sub multiple days with us within the district. I think everyone knows with COVID, the sub shortage has gotten even tougher as schools are competing to have people cover the absences that are being caused. So we're not the only district who is bringing forward a way to try to incentivize the length of time that people stay with us during the year. So that's why I'm introducing a more tiered structure to the board.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions? No comments? Yes, Director Bennett.
Yes, what is the current rate of pay for substitutes?
140.
So it's currently 140?
Yep.
But there's no tiered to it. It's not if you work 29 days or 50 days, it's just 140 for no matter how many days you work?
There's a tier at like, I can't remember how many days. Is it 30 days? It goes up to 145 currently.
Okay.
We just added multiple levels. Yeah.
Okay, so my concern with this is, I understand that during COVID we have a huge sub shortage, just as every other district does. But in looking at districts around us to look at their current sub pay, and most of them are about 130, 135, and this would put us substantially higher, which makes sense during COVID. But my concern is after COVID is done, that we're locked into this rate of pay for substitutes that's going to be much higher than surrounding districts, and I'm wondering about the sustainability of paying our substitutes at such a higher rate than other districts.
Yeah, and I understand that concern. I'm comparing ours to Eden Prairie. Just did a new tiered structure that with their extra pay is $179 a day once you hit about day 50. So, other schools are starting to do that as well. As far as long sustainability, I do think that's a question because it's not a contract. We can negotiate or we can change this rate annually, but I do think it would be hard to change it back after you change it up. I think that sends a message to employees that you might not want to do. So that is a consideration to think about. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I agree that, once you give something, it's hard to take it back. So that's why I was wondering if this would be possible, if we could institute this and have a sunset in the resolution to where this is only for the 2021 school year, and then the next school year, 21-22, the pay rate will revert to the 19-20 school year rate of pay. Is that something that the administration would be open to? Is this something that other board members would be open to?
No comments, Director Beebe?
I think that's a reasonable request, Director Bennett, in light of the fact of doing budget cuts. I also know that unusual times require unusual actions, and we need to preserve those reserve teachers that we are working with. And I think that incentivizing is a very good idea. But it might be better to say, because of the unusual times that we are living in, that this is an unusual pay increase to accommodate the need for those reserve teachers and to preserve our relationships with them so that they are available to our classes. So I am definitely for that, and sunsetting it and bringing it back up each year.
Anyone else? Director Starks.
Executive Director Burrows, do you have an estimate of how much more per fiscal year this would potentially increase our costs?
I looked at previous year data. That one's a hard one to estimate simply because of COVID. Some of our schools are still in distance learning, so the costs aren't going to be the same. So it's hard to say what this year is actually going to end up being because we're not using subs currently. But based on just a real conservative estimate, I would think it'd probably be about, I think I sent that out to the board. I'm pulling it up right now. About $168K. That was my best estimate that I could give based on a regular school year. Yeah.
Director Olson.
Okay, well, I am unable to vote on this because I am a reserve teacher. I would like to mention that while I am a reserve teacher, I have a limit on school board, so I would not benefit in the same way at all as I would if I were not on the school board. So I'd just like to be able to mention that I've had many teachers who have said that they wish that we would incentivize substitutes to stay in the district versus, signing up for several districts and teaching here and there and everywhere, because then they are able to find a substitute teacher, and we have had a shortage before COVID. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, anyone else in regards to the question of Director Bennett?
I would like to hear someone in administration answer the regard to Bennett's question.
As far as if it can be amended, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Well, they recommended the way it is, so wanting to know if they would go along with the amendment, or they don't want the amendment, kind of know what their position is on it.
And being specific on the year that it would be for this school year.
I don't want to speak for all administration, so I'll let other people join in.
Thank you, Superintendent.
I'm open to having it amended to read just for this school year. It'll start on November 1st and end on June 30th, 2021. The board will again review, study the the next school year's sub-rate pay through a resolution.
Mhm. Thank you, Superintendent. I'm open to being specific only to this year, given the circumstances. Dr. Bennett.
Yes, Chair Korman, I would like to make a motion to amend the resolution to add the sentence at the end of the resolution that states that this rate of pay will be for the 2020-2021 school year only.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Steigoff.
Okay, so we have a motion by Director Bennett and second by Director Steigoff. All those in favor? Or do we need any more discussion? Director Starks?
Okay, so I have a question. So I'm in the same position as Director Olson, where I'm also a substitute teacher in the district. So I was going to abstain from the vote. Are we also abstaining from the amendment vote as well? Mr. Holman?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So any other comments about that motion? No, I think we already made the comments. So all those in favor of amending the language of the resolution to include this current school year, please say aye. Director Beebe?
Aye.
Director Bennett?
Aye.
Director Olson?
Abstaining.
Okay. Director Sorum?
Aye.
Director Starks?
Abstaining.
Director Steigoff?
Aye.
Okay, and Korman, aye. We have 5 votes for yes and 2 board members abstain. Okay, so this passes. So now we're gonna vote on the resolution as it is amended. So are we ready for that, or do we have any more discussion around that or questions for Mrs. Burrs? We're ready to vote. Okay, so all those in favor on approving this resolution for reserve teacher pay rate, please say aye. Director Beebe?
Aye.
Director Bennett?
Aye.
Director Olson?
Abstaining.
Director Sorum?
Aye.
Director Starks?
Abstaining.
Director Steigoff?
Aye.
And Korman, aye. That is 5 votes and 2 abstains, and the resolution passes. Thank you. So now we're getting onto our policy review. So the first one we have is the revised policy 522, Title IX, Sex Non-Discrimination Policy, Grievance Procedure and Process. Would someone like to read that, please, Director Bennett?
Yes, Madam Chair, as we discussed with administration, we thought about changing the way we do policies a little bit during school board meetings and just have the chair of the policy committee kind of facilitate the discussion and conversation. And so just to make it more efficient. So for tonight, we're going to go ahead and give that a try. So I'll just go ahead and read the resolutions and then ask for a second and then give a little bit of background and try to facilitate any conversation. And if it gets in over my head, then I will kick it to the superintendent or assistant superintendent. I'll phone a friend if I need to. So that being said, as Chair Korman just said, our first one is, look on my glasses so I can actually read it. So be it resolved, the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves revised policy 522, Title IX, Sex Non-Discrimination Policy, Grievance Procedures and Process. Could I get a second?
Second, Sorum.
So the background on this one is that the purpose of this policy is to provide equal education opportunity for all students and staff and prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex or sexual orientation pursuant to Title IX. On September 29th, the School Board Policy Committee reviewed this policy, and we are pretty much going with the MSBA model policy. And as board members look through this policy, there's probably a lot of red ink and a lot of strike through. And the changes that were made to this policy are because the definitions and procedures changed at the federal level. So we had to adapt to the laws of the land, and this is the MSBA model policy. So did I miss anything, Dr. Mitchler? All right, so any questions on this? Seeing none, I'll turn it back to the chair to call the roll.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving this resolution, please say aye. For policy 522, Director Beebe,
Aye.
Director Bennett,
Aye.
Director Olson,
Aye.
Director Sorum,
Aye. Aye.
Director Starks,
Aye.
Director Steiger,
Aye.
and Korman, aye. The resolution passes. Thank you. We go to the next one.
All right, the next one, be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves no changes to policy 102, equal education opportunity.
Second, Steigoff.
Okay, so the background on this, the policy is to ensure that equal education opportunities provided for all students of the district that follows the content of the MSBA model policy. Any questions? Okay, Chair, please take the roll.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the resolution for policy 102, please say aye. Director Beebe,
Aye.
Director Bennett,
Aye.
Director Olson,
Aye.
Director Sorum,
Aye.
Director Starks,
Aye.
Director Steiger,
Aye.
and Korman, aye. That is 7 votes to approve.
Okay, the next one, be it resolved the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves no changes to policy 208, school board policies. Could I get a second?
Second, Sorum.
So this one we wanted to open up for more of a conversation because just to give some background to the folks that are new, we've only been doing policies this way for 5 years when we started the policy committee. Before then, we did all of our policies at the board table, and it would come to the board 3 different times for 2 different readings, and then 1 more time to vote on. And the philosophy of the board at the time was that it was consuming a lot of time in the board meetings, and we were having a lot of conversations on cosmetic issues like word structure and different word choices and changing sentences, but we really weren't getting into the meat of the policies. So in the interest of trying to have more in-depth conversations, we decided to change to a policy committee where the 3 board members could have a longer in-depth conversation about the policies. And we've been doing this for about 5 years now, and those policy committee meetings usually have about 5 policies, and we meet between an hour and 2 hours of really getting into the weeds of the policy. And it's a system that I think has worked well in these 5 years. We've been reviewing and policies about 20 to 25 a year, which is much faster than the other way of doing it. But before we made any changes to this policy, since this is board work and this is how the board handles policies, we felt that we should have a conversation. If this new board, since we have 3 new members, do they feel that we should continue with the same way, or should we go back to having all the policies in the meeting so that every board member can have a voice and can critique or make changes? So I just want to see if there's any conversation of anything that wants to be, anyone that wants to change anything in this policy. So yes, Director Starks.
So my answer is actually neither. I'm interested if anyone's interested in having a conversation about a hybrid version of that, of what you just discussed. So right now, when the policy committee, and I'm one of the members of the policy committee, so I really enjoy it because I get to get into the weeds, as Tom mentioned. But then by the time it comes to the board for approval, the board hasn't necessarily had a lot of time to digest any changes that we may have made. Now that has been since changed a little bit, where it used to be that we would meet on like a Tuesday, you guys would get it on a Thursday, and we'd vote on it on a Monday. We have made changes where the board does get the policy a good week or 2 weeks in advance so that the board can take a look at it and ask questions of Director Bennett or any cabinet members if they have questions. But my concern is that the public still only hears the policy at the time of the vote. So I would like to propose that there's one reading where we don't vote on it, but we at least can share the policy so that the public can hear what it is that we may be potentially changing, and then vote in a meeting following that. So it's not as much for the board members to have the understanding of what's being changed, but it's more for the members of our community and our public to understand where there may be changes.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts? Yes, Director Beebe.
Recently, there was a policy where I felt that I would like to have had some input, and I was blocked from doing that. And I didn't feel like my voice as a board member was heard until it came to the board. So I feel that there still needs to be an opportunity for other board members to be able to express comments and, you know, be able to give input. And I don't think that that's happening right now. I had been on the policy committee before, and I think that's great. But when you're not on the policy committee and you still have some insights and questions, and you think it might be important for others to hear that too, I think those things should be circulated among our board members.
Okay, what Director Beebe is illustrating is one of the problems with the way we're doing this is because it's not that we don't want to have that conversation with Director Beebe or any board member that has questions or concerns. It's just that there's limits to how much conversation we can have, because if you get into having conversations with a quorum of the board outside of an open meeting, then you get into violations of open meeting laws. So if a board member has some concerns with something that's in a policy, they can't just call up the chair of the policy committee and say, oh, can you change this? Because the answer is no, I can't, because this is what was decided on in an open meeting, and I can't make changes in between meetings. So that the only opportunity would be at the board meeting. So I just kind of wanted to put some context behind those comments. So any other comments anyone want to say? Yes, go ahead, Director Beebe, go ahead and finish.
No, let Director Sorum go.
Oh, I thought you wanted to add on. Okay, go ahead, Director Sorum.
Yeah, the concern I have is when a policy does all of a sudden get brought to the board's attention and then it goes public, and then we hear from all kinds of people on policies, then it gets a little bit cumbersome as to, okay, thank you for your input, thank you for your input. And if it doesn't get accepted by the policy committee at that time before it's brought to the board, so we're opening up all kinds of possibilities of, does the public really have input into our policies, or do they just need to be aware that there is a policy and we're changing the policy?
I would think that about 95% of our policies, it's all pro forma stuff, I think would be no. But I think there are policies that come up every now and again that there's going to be community interest and they're going to want to see what changes we're making. And as Director Starks was illustrating earlier, that if we just, the first time they're hearing of it is the night that we're voting on it, it doesn't really provide any opportunity for community feedback. So that's something that we should either make changes to so we're having that feedback, or decide to continue on without addressing that.
Okay, and in the past, we have had various advisory committees. Whatever the policy pertained to would go to that advisory committee first, and then they would provide input. And a lot of times it would have to go to administration, it would have to go to, I don't recall PTA per se, but I know there's enough of some of the schools are different advisory groups. The workforce advisory group, which was PER in the past, always saw policy too. So there was enough input from a variety of sources. After the first reading, when it was said, this is what we want to do, administration, can you change it? Then it would go on to another group that would say, okay, here's some other ones. If it was about the school setting or curriculum or anything else, it would go to the appropriate group of people. And so there was always some additional input. So then it would come back for a second reading, and then more input, and then the third meeting was the approval, acceptance. So it did get to be quite a process, but yet that's needed. That would be, like you say, for some policies it might be. Others are just recommended by the Minnesota school boards, and so it's not a big deal.
So any other comments? Anyone who we haven't heard from yet want to say anything? Yes, Director Steigoff.
I think that the policy committee, it's been working great. It's been very effective. I would like to keep doing it with the policy committee and not have every single discussion at the board, but I could be agreeable to the version that Director Starks also brought forward too. If I could go along with that, but I would prefer not to go back to the old way where everything was at the board for multiple meetings.
Okay. Anyone else? Do you want to hear from the two that haven't said anything yet, Chair Korman or Director Olson? Do you have any opinion?
Yes, Director Bennett. So just one question for you, since you're the chair of the policy committee. Is there any particular or specific recommendation that MSBA gives to school boards in regards to how to proceed with those policy reviews?
Well, this is not an MSBA model policy because we kind of do our own thing with the policy committee. Most other districts, they still do the way that we used to do it, where there was 2 readings and then a vote. Some districts, they do a reading and then they put it in the consent agenda for the next meeting to kind of move things along. But yeah, I don't think we have a recommendation from MSBA. I think, I don't know if anyone else had any conversations with anyone from MSBA that have any recommendations on this that they'd like to share. No? Okay. Anyone have any other comments before we go back to Director Beebe? Okay, go ahead, Director Beebe. What else did you have?
My question is, at what point then do other board members have opportunity to comment? And if it's only in the school board meeting where it's brought up, then I think it's important to bring that up. I guess I'm wondering where my voice is, if I can't talk to anybody on that committee, if I have a concern, until I get to the meeting, then we need to be encouraged to interact about the policy in the meeting.
Well, to answer your question, that when do you have a chance for your voice? That's when the policy is brought to the board. And if the board has substantial questions that they feel that they do not want to move forward with the policy, then they vote down the policy, and then the policy goes back to the policy committee for revision. So that's the opportunity for board members to have a voice. If you have like clarifying questions or you have some concerns, those are things that you can talk to either administration about, or you can talk to the chair of the policy committee about. But if there's things that you want changes to, those are things we can't do until the meeting.
Okay. Yeah. I tried that. I did all those things you said. And it was for a resolution that came through very quickly, and we weren't given enough time, nor were we given opportunity to talk about it. And we have been getting feedback from the community about it. And so I think that sometimes I should go back and say, I'm glad that now we get things with more advance notice because it helps. But I'm just wanting to make sure that the voices are heard at the table then and not criticized. Thank you.
Okay, Director Sorum.
Would it be possible, I know Deb, when a policy committee meeting is established, she sends out the policies in question. I don't know, maybe this is a question for the superintendent too. Could she just send out to everybody that the policy committee is meeting to discuss these policies? And that way everybody else would have a chance to look into our existing policies online and figure out, well, is that something I'm interested in or not?
Mr. Superintendent, you want to comment?
Yeah, the answer is yes, Jim. We could do that if that's what the board desires.
Yes, Director Beebe.
Does that then allow us to send questions to the policy committee? Or do we have to wait to give those questions when it comes to the table?
Might be a Mr. Holman question.
Well, depending on what process you use, you just have to be careful about violating the open meeting law. So I can envision things where you could do something similar. I mean, you could, when you find out that a certain policy is being up for review, you could send questions or concerns to, I hate to say Deb Bunkle, because she already does so much, but you could send it to somebody and she could forward it on to the committee.
Yeah.
But you got to stay away from a debate. That can't happen because at that point you're going to have a quorum issue and then you might be in violation of the open meeting law.
Okay. Yes, Director Olson.
Probably Chair Korman was going to say the same thing, but Deb Bunkle does provide us with a folder that we can all access with the policies. And so I also have a question. If it was put into the next meeting's consent actions, then does that mean if somebody, such as Director Beebe, for example, wanted to make a change, she would then, when we vote on the consent actions, that would be a time that it would be stopped?
Oh, that's true for any consent item. Any board member can take anything off of the consent agenda and put it into the Part B agenda. That's why it's called consent. If everyone doesn't consent, then we just put into the Part B and we vote on it.
So that is what, I mean, isn't that the solution then? That it could be discussed at that time?
There's multiple solutions. I mean, I wasn't recommending that we put it into the consent agenda. I was just saying how some other districts do it, that not every district does it the same way.
Okay.
So Chair Korman, you had a question?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge again the value of having the policy review committee that is consists of 3 board members so that we don't have that quorum. And the importance of going back to the conversations we had years ago of why having those committees was so that it could be the work of a few of us that will take into the task of going through each one of those policies carefully, revise them and talk to administration, gather input, because part of that revising those policies also is what have we heard from the community before? What are the current needs that we need to revise these policies? So part of that, it's already in there. When it comes to community involvement, it's already there. I would also like to remind you that it is the job of the school board to approve those policies, to set the policies too. That's why we've been that's why we have been elected. That's the job that we do. Obviously, community input is very important in the work that we do. And I would also agree with Director Steiger that, I will not have an issue with maybe bringing it a couple of times before we vote on them. If we need to do first reading, maybe in study session mode, I don't know, but there's, like you said, Director Bennett, there's different ways of doing this. Definitely would not go with let's all revise them together, the 7 of us, because that will be too much work, not work that we cannot do, but when there's too many people involved in the same task, we know that sometimes, we're gonna just end up in long hours of meetings. So I would not want that either. So there is a benefit of having a committee, and when this committee is assigned or we vote on the members that will be part of that committee, we're putting our trust in the committee as well. And then the item comes to us, it's actually coming now in the folder too. It's in the folder that the Banco has for us. And it gives us an opportunity to take a look at it, to ask the questions that we need to ask administration or the chair of the committee. And then we come and we have the conversation here all together, and it's in public, because obviously we cannot have that type of conversation amongst ourselves. So this is the only setting where we can actually do that.
Okay, so to paraphrase what I've been hearing from my colleagues, is that it sounds like that some board members want some change made to this, and other board members would be open to some change to this. So what I would recommend is that we send this policy back to the committee for the committee to bring up or find make some amendments to this that would embody the conversation that we had here tonight. Does that sound accurate from what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, so therefore I will go ahead and make a motion to table this resolution and send it back to the policy committee.
Is there a second?
Second, Starks.
Any conversation at all? No. Okay, Chair, go ahead and take the roll.
Okay, so all those in favor on tabling this item for policy 208 tonight, please say aye. Director Beebe?
Aye.
Director Bennett?
Aye.
Director Olson?
Aye.
Director Sorum?
Aye.
Director Starks?
Aye.
Director Steiger?
Aye.
And Korman, aye. Thank you.
Okay, so the next one, be it resolved, the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves no change to policy 208.1 regulations. Could I get a second, please?
Second, Maya Olson.
Okay, so the purpose of this policy is to establish a process for formulating, updating, and deleting regulations. We develop our own policy regarding establishing regulations, as MSBA does not have a regulation to accompany its policy on school board policies. So is there any discussion, any questions? Seeing none, Chair, please take the roll.
Okay, so all those in favor of approving this resolution for review, please say aye. Director Beebe?
Aye.
Director Bennett?
Aye.
Director Olson?
Aye.
Director Sorum?
Aye.
Director Starks?
Aye.
Director Steiger?
Aye.
And Korman, aye. This has been approved with 7 votes.
Okay, the last one, be resolved, the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves no change to policy 408, subpoena of school district employee.
Second, Steiger.
Okay, this policy is to protect the privacy rights of school district employees and students under both state and federal laws when they're requested to testify or provide educational records. So any questions or comments about this one? All right, seeing none. Chair, go ahead and please call the roll.
All those in favor of approving this resolution for policy 408, please say aye. Director Beebe?
Aye.
Director Bennett?
Aye.
Director Olson?
Aye.
Director Sorum?
Aye.
Director Starks?
Aye.
Director Steiger?
Aye.
And Korman, aye. That's 7 votes. Thank you. Come to the end of the policy review. And then we go next on our agenda. It's board member reports, and I will be passing on reports from myself tonight. Anyone else? Director Beebe?
I'll just make this brief, but I was in a early childhood, what was called early childhood advocacy group, and found that it was a really encouraging time to see parents that are really wanting to work together, especially during COVID, to connect, and also some of the things that are being done in the early childhood ECFE to connect parents. And because I think this is so important, I really want to encourage families in the community that have preschoolers to find a connection through our ECFE program and early childhood, for the sake of being able to be with other parents, and also for your children to have connections with other students during the COVID time. So I have other things to report, but I just thought that was very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bew. Director Olson?
Yes, I'll also keep this brief because we have another meeting. I just wanted to let people know, I attended the Special Education Community Advisory Council, CCAC as it's known for short, and they have a meeting the first Tuesday of each month. And they discussed that the silver lining to COVID is that there were new members attending at that meeting, and they expect that maybe it's easier to meet online for some of these parents because they're very isolated while they're doing distance learning with their students and with their children. And so I just wanted to mention that if anybody out there is listening and they have a student in special education, that this is a very casual group, and you are welcome to meet there. If you have to turn off the camera, turn off the sound because you need to, if you need to work with your child or they're interrupting, that doesn't matter. Everyone there is very understanding. And so you won't find a better place to find a group of understanding people to support each other. And contact Jennifer McIntyre if you are interested.
Thank you, Director Olson. Anyone else? No? Okay, so before we move into the motion for the closed session, we have Superintendent's report. Superintendent Fujitaki.
Chair Korman, I have good news. Centerpoint Energy has a conservation improvement program. And this year, for 2019, our district has won their Customer of the Year award for our use of Centerpoint Energy's rebate program and our district's progressive conservation efforts. In making this award, Centerpoint Energy recognized 3 of our leaders for their exemplary work: Tim Reebok, Bill Hager, and Melissa Schaefer. These efforts over the last 3 years has saved the energy equivalent to eliminating the average natural gas consumption for 1,200 homes, while earning our district over $130,000 in rebates. So congratulations to them and to the district for earning this award. That concludes my report, Chair Korman.
Congratulations. Thank you, Superintendent Fujitaki. And now I would like to make a motion to establish a closed session upon the conclusion of tonight's meeting. This one will be closed as permitted by Section 13D.03 to discuss the district's labor negotiation strategy related to the district's negotiation with all bargaining groups. Is there a second?
Second, Bibi.
Very good. All those in favor of approving this closed session, please say aye. Director Bibi?
Aye.
Director Bennett?
Aye.
Director Olson?
Aye.
Director Sorum?
Aye.
Director Starks?
Aye.
Director Saiga?
Aye.
And Korman, aye. So this has been approved. And now I'd like to make a motion, or are there any other business? No. I'd like to make a motion for adjournment of the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Director Bibi?
Aye.
Director Bennett?
Aye.
Director Olson?
Aye.
Director Sorum?
Aye.
Director Starks?
Aye.
Director Steigap?
Aye.
And Korman, aye. This meeting has been adjourned, and I'll see you in a bit in our closed session. Thank you.